I hope that the combination of the lyrics and the music will affect people in a cathartic way, which releases feelings that they've had in the past about their own experiences.
This is tricky.
I think we should include all this.
Yeah.
When people, the right people who are affected by this stuff, hear that, they're going to say, oh, we want to hear these other songs now. When are they coming out? Is it any excuse that I didn't know information's no use when the heart is too slow? So this song is about real experiences, real people, and when you write a song like that, it poses some issues, some moral issues about intrusion, particularly when the people involved may be survivors of various forms of abuse. These stories have to be told. The silence, what some authors have called omerta, surrounding these kind of crimes and experiences has prevailed for far too long. And yet we have to be very careful about the emotions of people who've been victims in the past. And of course there are also laws about making public those experiences if the victims do not want their experiences to be publicised. On the other hand, abuse doesn't just affect those who are immediately impacted by it. It ripples like a stone being thrown into a pond, and because those who are abused and have been abused have relationships with other people in all sorts of spheres, the way they have been affected by what's happened to them also traumatizes those close to them. And so I feel, because of the experience I had, especially since I found out about what had happened to the people I knew many years after my closest interaction with them, which came to explain an awful lot about what had happened in the past, I feel I have my own story to tell, my own emotions that I need to express, and I feel I have every right to do that.
So, why did you write the song?
Well, I suppose that when I was putting out songs on MySpace 17 years ago, just accompanied by guitar, I'd written a song which will also come out in this album, called The Apple of Your Eye, which was about the school which I'd been teaching at and what went on there and the relationships I formed while I was there. And I also wrote a song called A Way of Believing that is on this album, which is about trying to reconnect with somebody you cared for, who you've lost touch with. But then I suddenly thought, I need to say something deeper. I need to say something more that really gets to the heart of what caused the hurt in these relationships and why they went so badly wrong. And particularly why they went so badly wrong in the tensions of a school trip in the heat of the Mediterranean. At the same time, things that were said to me about 17 years ago made me certain of what I had suspected but hadn't been completely certain of before, that two people who mattered to me in different ways had been abused at home, in the parental home. And that's how this song came into my mind, both lyrically and musically. And I suppose it was those lines, "Is it any excuse that I didn't know?" and the tune of that started. And gradually I began to explore the metaphor of the sea and shipwreck and drowning as a metaphor for really the consciousness and emotional shipwreck as metaphors. And it built up from there. And I think the song was pretty much as it is 17 years ago. I've changed it a little bit since. I've added some more lyrics. Julio wanted to do a bit more music, and so I wrote a few more lyrics for that. So it's developed a little bit as my understanding of the past has continued to develop. But the basic spirit of the thing is as it was when I first thought of it. And that's all.
What do you hope that people might actually get from the music if they heard it? What do you hope they'd feel?
People say that a song should not be too specific in its effect. If it's going to really be successful, it has to have a general impact. So I think Any Excuse is one of the best songs I've written. I couldn't sit down and write another one. And I hope that even though I'm giving off quite a lot of information about it here that makes it quite specific to a context, I hope that the combination of the lyrics and the music will affect people in a cathartic way, which releases feelings that they've had in the past about their own experiences, about difficulties they've had with their parents, about people who've behaved poorly to them, and about people, above all perhaps, from my point of view, about people that they've known and who at the time they've known them, they've misunderstood. They haven't understood what's really going on with them, and as a result of that, they've made mistakes. Those are the things I want people to get out of this song. I hope they do. You asked me whether there was a risk of my song being seen as taking away from the experience of those who'd really suffered the abuse and being about me. And my answer to that is that I can't really write about their experience. I can only write about my own experience as it refracts theirs. I have written a song which attempts not to be about them, but to enter into the mind of somebody who has been abused. A song also included in this album called Playing Cards of Pain. And that kind of tries to explore my own experience with my own parents as a child, but entering at the same time into the mind of somebody who has grown up suffering abuse. I don't know how well that works. I think it's an okay song, and people will be able to hear that in due course. And then you asked me whether I wanted the people involved to hear my songs, particularly this song, which I very much do want them to hear, because to show them that I care. And that question really took me aback quite a lot and made me think. And the answer is yes, very much so. In fact, I have a considerable pain in my midriff when I think about that, because I think that's the one of the main difficulties. One of the people involved turned to me one day and he said, "Never trust anyone. I never do." I'll never forget that. But of course, in a sense, the last person I should have trusted was him, because of what he'd been through. He couldn't trust. And somebody who can't trust cannot be trusted. And the girl as well, later on, in later years, put an awful lot, she put some very significant stuff on the internet about trust and how dangerous it was to trust, particularly in a family context. And that was in relation to a book by Nancy Newton-Verrier, which I read at that time, called The Primal Wound, about the personal pain that can arise from adoption. And it was that idea, the title of Nancy Newton-Verrier's book, The Primal Wound, that led to the title of this song. And the idea of the wound having a sound. Can a wound have a sound? I've heard it said that the great thing about the Beatles was when they in writing, when Lennon or McCartney were writing, and they had a thought that was like a discontinuity that didn't quite make sense. And instead of trying to make sense of it, you go with it. And so, yeah, a wound can have a sound. And for a while, I actually thought, before I chose the title Any Excuse, I thought of calling this song Sound of the Wound. And then the issue arises. You want people to hear your song. You want them to know that you did care. Whatever they thought at the time, whatever they think now, yeah, you did care. And you want them to hear that. You want to be seen. But what do you do? What can you do in this situation? Do you send them the songs? Do you put them all on a USB and post them? Do you dedicate? I thought of dedicating. I really thought of dedicating. Do you say, "Hello, it's me, here you are, this is for you"? Or do you just put it out there? And in the end, for a whole host of reasons, I decided to put it out there, and that's it. And that's all.